In Panama, citizens go to the polls on Sunday's general elections. Over 3 million Panamanians are eligible to cast their votes. In Palestine, Israel continued targeting civilian structures in Gaza, marking the 212th day of the ongoing Israeli genocidal war on the enclave. And Gambia hosts the 15th summit of this Organization of Islamic Cooperation, calling for an end to Israeli aggressions and crimes against the Palestinian people. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Sunday, the 2024 general elections start taking place in Panama. 3,004,083 Panamanians decide on May 5th the political future of that nation in the next 5 years. A polarized vote between desired social change or the clientelism and transitional models of previous governments. Some 3,037 polling stations are enabled with 7,577 voting tables from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. local time to elect 887 public officials in a complex democratic process where it is won by simple majority and there will be no second round. In these elections, the new president and vice president of the country, 20 deputies to the Central American Parliament, and 71 deputies to the National Assembly will be elected. Let's go now deeper on Panama's general elections. We welcome Irina Ruiz, director of Acampadoc International School and Documentary Film Festival of Panama. Welcome, Irina, to From the South.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you.
No, it's a pleasure. Irina, today is a key moment for Panama's political landscape. How are these elections unfolding so far, and what is the mood of Panamanian voters as they head to the polls?
Well, in fact, we are located in an agricultural and livestock area with a great potential for tourism and creative industries. These elections have been held with a wide participation of citizenship, and local candidates are promoting, as always, public education, preventing health. Water resources is one of the main concerns here in the area.
5 candidates in this race, Irina. What are voters choosing from? What options do citizens have on the tables? What are the plans of the candidates?
Well, most of the plans are, based on preservation of natural resources. As I was mentioning, water is very important because this is a dry region and there is no access for the communities to solve these problems. And many governments have been trying to mitigate what we are now calling the climate change action. But this area is having extended summers, and most of the citizenship here and the central region of Panama are lacking of this support, the political and administrative support, because there are infrastructure, but the problem is that administrative support is bad.
These elections come in a context of strong discontent following massive demonstrations last year against the mining concessions. Panama is also facing a weakened economy. What will be needed from whoever wins today moving forward for the nation?
Well, in this central region, mining is a high and critical concern for the population because this is a Minera Cerro Quema corporation, and as along the other kind of corporation that are extracting natural resources in Panama. Drinking water is the main concern for all the people, health, and special that many of the candidates that have been promoted are not talking about cultural plans, not educational plans at all. And this is a support for sustainability, for sustainable development. This is very important, and probably the winner or the winners will have a great challenge on that.
Thank you, Irina, for your time hearing From the South.
Thank you.
Sure. We're going to continue providing updates on Panama's general elections in the upcoming news brief, but for now, we continue in Cuba. The Executive Secretary of the World Peace Council, Iraklis Tasavadridis, called for the shutdown of the illegal naval base that the United States has maintained in the province of Guantanamo for more than 120 years. The call was accompanied by the participants in the 8th International Seminar for Peace and the Abolition of Foreign Bases, sponsored by the Cuban Institution of Friendship with the Peoples and the World Council for Peace. The event was attended for more than 90 delegates, among them about 70 foreigners from some 25 countries. The Guantanamo naval base constitutes an offense to the dignity and sovereignty of Cuba and contradicts the postulates of the proclamation of Latin America and the Caribbean as a zone of peace, approved in 2014 in Havana at the second summit of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States. In Colombia, President Gustavo Petro's government delivered Saturday 6,000 hectares of land to farmer families in 11 municipalities. The day framing the agrarian reform plan included simultaneous events in different regions of the country. The activity was led by the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Jennifer Mojica, who emphasized that agrarian reforms is to give the opportunity to the second or third generation of the 8 million displaced families who lost everything. The event was held in homage to Narciso Beleño, a farmer leader murdered in the town of Santa Rosa del Sur on April 21st. Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Well, the story is coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. On Saturday, in the Colombian Department of Risaralda, at least 3 people died, including a minor, after a landslide occurred in the middle of intense rains. In this way, the Army highlighted a team specialized in emergency accompanied the rescue of people in the city of Dos Quebradas. In this sense, the report adds that so far 4 people have been rescued, including 3 children, while the neighborhood where the landslide occurred also has been evacuated, as it is expected that the rains will continue. In this regard, authorities indicated that they are still working on the search efforts after the emergency that left 2 houses affected in the Esnanada neighborhood. On Sunday, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva travels to Rio Grande do Sul to accompany his government's work in humanitarian assistance to those affected by the heavy rains. President Lula reaffirmed that federal resources would not be lacking in Rio Grande do Sul, which faces, according to the authorities, the worst weather disaster in its history. On Saturday, Lula headed a virtual meeting with ministers where he discussed emergency solutions for the state and the creation of a crisis cabinet in Porto Alegre to fasten communication between the federal government and the affected municipalities. Brazilian authorities report that Porto Alegre remains under floodwater that has caused more than 50 deaths, 70 missing, and forced nearly 70,000 people to leave their homes in southern Brazil. The Guaíba River, which flows through the city of 1.4 million people, reached a record level of 5.09 meters, surpassing the previous record of 4.76 meters set by the devastating floods of 1941. Over 1 million people were left without access to drinking water during the floods. In the United States, authorities in the Harris County, Texas, said that more than 400 people have been rescued from homes, rooftops, and roads since Saturday, following heavy rains and floods. A flood watch remains in effect through Sunday afternoon as forecasters predicted additional rainfall Saturday night and the likelihood of major flooding. Authorities have not reported any death or injury so far as a result of the weather event. Harris County is the nation's 3rd largest county, which includes Houston and nearby areas. On Sunday, Israel continued targeting civilian structures in Gaza, marking the 212th day of the ongoing Israeli genocidal war on the enclave. Israeli warplanes launched 2 airstrikes on the Al-Salam neighborhood east of Rafah, resulting in the killing and injury of several civilians. Fighter jets also struck the town of Sawaida and targeted an agricultural land in a neighboring Maghazi refugee camp. The ongoing Israeli aggression has resulted so far in 34,654 documented Palestinian fatalities, the majority of whom are children and women. In addition, 77,908 injuries have been registered, with thousands of victims still under the rubble. Israeli forces bombarded different points in the Gaza Strip while waiting for the resumption of ceasefire negotiations in Cairo. In this sense, Wafa news agency reported that residential buildings in Rafah, Deir al-Balah, were targeted by the bombardment. It should be noted that the Israeli genocide continues, as on Sunday a delegation of Hamas continues its contacts with the Egyptian mediators to try to reach a ceasefire in the enclave and a prisoner exchange. In this context, Palestinian resistance sources said there will be no agreement with Israel without an explicit text on a permanent ceasefire. Netanyahu's government ordered to shut down the offices of the Qatari television channel Al Jazeera in Israel. The decision was unanimously approved by the Israeli cabinet with immediate effect and includes the cancellation of the press credentials of journalists working for the channel, as well as the confiscation of all the broadcast equipment, logistics and technical tools. The ruling was based on the grounds that the Qatari television network threatens national security, accusation that Al Jazeera rejected, calling it a dangerous and ridiculous lie that puts its journalists at risk. The cabinet vote came after the Israeli parliament passed a bill allowing the temporary closure of foreign broadcast stations. In Israel, thousands of citizens demonstrated in Tel Aviv to demand early elections and new agreements with Palestine to achieve the release of Israelis held in the Gaza Strip. Activists and relatives of those held by the Hamas group in Gaza protested against Benjamin Netanyahu's government and demanded his resignation. Police blocked streets to contain the demonstrations, as well as nearby highway exits to prevent protesters from blocking traffic. The protest was organized by Generation of Change, a movement founded after the Palestinian uprising last October 7th.
I think the ceasefire is adamant that the most important thing is to bring back the hostages and bring humanitarian aid to Gaza. That is the most important thing, and a ceasefire will do that. Basically, the Israeli people are being held hostage by the right-wing government.
In France, hundreds of pro-Palestine demonstrators marched Sunday in Paris demanding justice for the Palestinian people and an end to the genocidal Israeli aggression on the Gaza Strip. Participants gathered in the first district of Paris, calling for an immediate halt to the Israeli aggression on Gaza. Demonstrators also demanded the exclusion of Israeli athletes from participating in the upcoming Paris Olympic Games. On Saturday, many cities and capitals worldwide, including Berlin, London, Dublin, and Ottawa, saw massive protests in support of the Palestinian people, urging an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and the delivery of humanitarian aid. We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. Gambia hosts the 15th summit of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, calling for an end to Israeli aggression and crimes against the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip. The leaders of some 50 countries kicked off the organization's summit on Saturday in the Gambian capital, Banjul. The meeting was attended by a dozen heads of state and government, while other countries were represented by foreign ministers or other envoys. 3 key documents will be presented during the event, which runs until Sunday: a draft Palestinian resolution, draft Banjul Declaration, on the draft outcome document. During his opening speech, the organization's Secretary General, Hussein Ibrahim Taha, condemned the war crimes committed by Israel.
Le présent sommet islamique This present Islamic summit is taking place against the backdrop of serious and unprecedented developments in the Palestinian cause, in particular the persistence of crimes, brutality, and Israeli military aggression against the Palestinian people, particularly in the Gaza Strip. In politics, the policies of colonial occupation, ethnic cleansing, the Judaization of the city of Al-Quds and the attacks on the Holy Mosque of Al-Aqsa, all of which constitute war crimes and crimes against humanity.
For his part, the foreign minister of Saudi Arabia condemned the failure of the United Nations Security Council to put an end to the genocide being committed by Israel in Gaza.
The Palestinian question continues to be the central priority of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. The OIC expresses the collective voice of Islam in support of the Palestinian people to bring them out of injustice so that they regain all their legitimate rights, adopted by the international resolution and the Arab reference. It is regrettable to witness the failure of the Security Council of the international community to put an end to the Israeli aggressions, which are escalating in an unprecedented manner.
Gambian President Adama Barrow expressed his solidarity with South Africa and his support for the attempt to bring the Israeli government to international justice for the atrocities committed in the Gaza Strip.
This bold move illustrates the collective commitment of the international community to the principle of justice and human rights. It sends a powerful message that impunity for grave violations of international law, such as those committed against the Palestinian people, will not be tolerated. We stand in solidarity with South Africa and all those who advocate justice and accountability, and we pledge our support for their efforts to seek redress for the victims of atrocities committed by Israel.
Orthodox Christians in Ethiopia attended Easter Mass in churches across the country. Dozens of faithful traveled on Good Friday to the Abun Tekla Muhammadnot Church on the outskirts of the capital to take part in the celebrations. On Saturday, they gathered in churches in Addis Ababa to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus and the end of an almost 2-month fast. During the 55 days leading up to Easter, Orthodox Christians in the African nation fast during a period known as Hudade or Abiy Some, where they refrain from eating meat and dairy products. Ethiopia has the largest Orthodox population outside Europe. Russian President Vladimir Putin attended the Easter Mass celebrated by the Orthodox Church. The head of state joined the Orthodox worshippers and Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin at the Cathedral of Christ the Savior in Moscow on Saturday night. The service was led by the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, Patriarch Cyril, who prayed for the protection of Russia's sacred frontiers. Most Western Christian churches observe Easter this year on March 31st, while the Eastern Orthodox churches follow the older Julian calendar and celebrated on May 5th. On Sunday in France, the authorities of the city of Marseille assured that the airport is ready to receive the Olympic flame. In this sense, Benoit Payan, mayor of Marseille, assured that with the final cleaning operations, all is set to welcome the legendary ship Belém. In this way, the old port, as it is called by the locals, is preparing to welcome the Olympic flame on May 8th in a celebration that will be the starting shot for the Games of Paris.
The start of the Olympic Games, the kickoff of the Games, is in Marseille. It's May the 8th. I wanted to create something very popular, very fraternal, very united, which is in line with the Olympic spirit. It is a spirit of sharing, of values, of surpassing oneself.
The organizers of the 2014 Paris have announced that the Games will be the most inclusive in history. In this sense, one of the torchbearers will be a member of the LGBTQ community. After knowing the decision, Ms. Martini expressed her feelings about the choice.
I'm going to do the torch relay on May 11th at precisely 12:21 in Digny-les-Bains. And so in theory, I'll be the first drag queen to carry the flame in the whole world, the whole universe.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.